welcome back to our recent video. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series of 75 top tips to help you pass your test. Let's jump straight in. Here we go then, guys. Number 1, find comfy shoes and stick with them. It's worth trying a couple of different types, but once you've found the shoes that work best for you, stick with them and bring them out to the car every single time. Okay, number 2, adjust the car seat and make sure that you try different seating positions, because once you've got the car set up correctly, you will not want to change it again. Right, tip number 3, be comfortable with your car controls. Make sure it's easy enough for you to turn the temperature up or down, because it's not comfortable driving, especially if you're too hot. Tip number 4, make sure you're happy using the horn if it's an emergency, or even if it's just to scare off some stubborn birds. And on to tip number 5 in terms of car controls. Once you've got your car set up, try and have it the same every time. If you don't have it consistent, you might find that some of your reference points might be out. So make sure you're consistent every time with the car setup. Now, tip number 6 here is in the category which we're talking about moving off, and it's ensuring that you check all around the car before you go, not just once. Check a few times. How valid is one check for? Right, a couple of seconds, things can change. So, like you see the guy here, have multiple checks. Tip number 7, using your signals when necessary. What I like to say is, when you're moving off, if there's no one around, you don't need a signal. If you can see someone, anyone, anywhere around the car, give them a signal. It's not going to do any harm. Okay, tip number 8, be aware of your speed limits. Sometimes these speed limits will be shown to you at the beginning of a new road, and sometimes they will be shown to you at the end of the road, either just before a junction or just before a roundabout. So have a good look out to see what the new road you're joining is. Now, tip number 9 is all to do with having different acceleration methods. There might be times where you just need to move off with some gentle power. There might be times where you've got to get a move on a little bit more and get the speed up quicker with some moderate power. And maybe even if you've pulled out accidentally in front of someone that you shouldn't have, you might be wanting to be a little bit more aggressive with the power. Maybe not that much, but just be comfortable with different options that you have for getting the car going. Now, tip number 10 is to do with someone flashing the lights to let you go. Now, they shouldn't do this. The highway code says they shouldn't do this, but people in real life do. So you've got to keep an eye out for it. It's not always that obvious as well. So you've got to make sure that you see it and do what they're asking you to do if it's safe. And some cars, it's hard to tell. They don't always make a show and dance of it like some of these cars will. So if you see it and it's safe, get a move on. Now we're on to normal stopping, and we've got number 11 here, effective mirror checks, just like the guy's doing just now. Very important to make sure that you know what's happening all around your car. Tip number 12, let people know what you're doing. If you're coming to a stop at the side of the road and there's no one around, you don't need a signal. If there is someone there, let them know what you're doing. Okay, so we're on to tip number 13, and this is to do with places that it's not a good idea to be stopping, so you want to avoid these kind of things that you can see on the screen. Once you've got the place in mind that you've chose, your target zone that you want to be stopping, run through the mirror signal manoeuvre routine, and you'll find that you don't need to do much with the wheel. Have a look at the steering wheel here. Small left turn, hold it. Bit of a right turn to straighten up, and then bring the car back to straight as you come to a stop. Now, tip number 14, try and be consistent with your stopping distance next to the curb. This contractor here with his measuring tape, whatever it is, The examiners are not going to be looking for the exact distance to be the same every time, but really it should be as close as it can be. Try roughly get about 6 inches from the curb, and have your angle nice and straight and parallel as best as you can. You can make uses of reference point where the curb will line up with something along your car door, just like this. Tip number 15, once you come to a stop, you can use your handbrake, whether it's a pull, cable handbrake or a button, and either select park or neutral. We're on to roundabouts now. So tip number 16, identify what you're coming up towards. They've all got different signs to guide you. The little blue one there showing it's a mini roundabout, and you've also got roundabouts that are much bigger, and multiple lanes, spirals, traffic light controlled. So make sure that in advance you've got an idea of where to position yourself for the roundabout. Here, tip number 17, good use of mirrors and signals on approach, going round, and when leaving. We've got Emily, or Star, who agreed to be on one of these driving videos. Look how good she is at checking her mirrors and her surroundings as she comes onto this multi-lane spiral traffic light controlled roundabout. So as she's coming all the way around, she's taking care to check beside her and all around her to make sure that the lane that she gets is safe and no one else is trying to take it. So a good tip this, mirrors on approach and all the way around. Tip number 18, try to understand what other cars are doing. Don't just rely on their indicators, have a bit look at their road position, have a bit look at the speed that they're travelling at, have a bit look at the body language of the driver, have a little bit look at the distance from the inside of the roundabout there to show if they're on the inner side or the outer side. Some drivers will not make this very easy. So from the last tip, it was guess what they're going to do with using the clues, but do not act until you get confirmation that you are right. In this scenario, this car can either go one of two ways. The learner assumed they were going to go the other way and tried to pull out, and I had to put the brakes on here. So the moral of the story is, take a bit of an educated guess, but wait until you've got proper confirmation before you act on it. And tip number 20, you'll hear me say this often, if you're in the wrong lane from what you've been asked to be in, or you're heading in a different direction from what you've been asked to go to, don't worry, stay in it. It's probably safer to not go jumping into a different lane. So the saying here is, just go a different way or the wrong way safely than trying to jump into the lane that you're meant to be in without checking properly. The examiners are quite happy if you go off track a little bit, as long as you were taking lanes that were accessible, and it's normally easy enough to get yourself back on track again. Now we're on to junctions. Tip number 21, look for lane options or markings on the road as early as you can. So here we can see the arrows pointing us to the left or to the right with full priority. However, if you're coming from these other angles, you can see that there's giveaway lines, so that's something that you want to know as early as possible. Our next tip when it comes to junction is trying to understand, is it an open or a closed junction? Now this is to do with the view that you have. Is it restricted? Do you have to slow right down and have a look? Or if it's nice and open, you might be able to keep it moving. Now again, use of mirrors and signals when you're coming up to a junction, not really any different from the roundabout advice. Really super important to know what's going on around about you and to let people know what you're about to do. Now some junctions are going to be quite tight. Don't put too much turn on initially as you're going round, or you're going to clobber the curb. Just take it easy with the wheel. And what you'll see here is a T-junction emerge onto a main road. there's two faults that you can make here. If you miss a chance that you should have taken, it's a hesitancy fault, normally a minor fault, unless there's a build-up of them. The other fault here is going when you shouldn't go, and if that's the case, it's almost always going to be marked as a serious because you've had an effect on someone else and made them slow down. You just got to get that call right. If it's safe and you think you've got the time, get the power on and get out of there. On to some reversing tips now. So again, we've got Emily, one of the videos that she was in, doing a reverse parallel park exercise here, and the tip is effective all-round observations. Absolute key when you're reversing. You can see Emily doing all these checks around the car. There is a car that's approaching and then stopped for us, so it was okay for us to carry on here. But the point I want to try and make is the most important thing about reversing is don't stare anywhere, keep checking all around. Now, tip number 27, once you've done your manoeuvre and if you're not happy with the outcome, there is absolutely nothing wrong with changing the gear either to forward, first gear, or reverse back, and what we call a shunt. Just move it into a better position and try again. Typically speaking, it will be backed as a minor fault for not having done the manoeuvre in one go, but you would take a minor fault any day of the week as long as you're not picking up a serious fault for it being under par for accuracy. Tip number 28, again still on the reversing side of things here, is when you're doing your exercise and another car is approaching you, it's a good idea to come to a very brief pause. As you're about to see, there's a car coming in the rear view mirror and the learner driver comes to just a little bit of a pause now, lets them pass, carries on after. Not stopping for long, you're not securing the car, it's just a very brief pause, let people carry on past you and then start again. Now, tip number 29, make use of your mirrors. Maybe not to do what this lady's doing and just stare and smile at yourself, but I would certainly use them to help you with your accuracy. If the weather is something like this, then you can rely on your camera, your car's camera, and if you have one of them, it's absolutely fine to make use of this. The golden rule is this: do not stare at any one place. Don't stare at the cameras, don't stare at the mirrors. Look around the car all the time. And rule number 30, let people know what you're up to. Use your indicators, use brake lights, use the road position of your car. If you're reversing, people behind you are going to be seeing the brake lights, and once you get them on, they'll see your reversing lights as well. So these are the different types of signals that you can use to let other road users have a rough idea of what you're up to. Now, Crossroads controlled by traffic lights. Number 31 is if you're going left or straight, you have priority over oncoming cars that wish to turn right. In most cases that is true. So if you're wanting to take a left or a straight, just get a move on if the light is green for you. If you're turning right, you've got to get into that middle section that you can see cars down there and take the chance when it comes. Right, tip 32. Identify what options the people opposite you will have. This is the best tip I think I can give for identifying how to work on a crossroads that's controlled by lights. For you to know where you have to position yourself, you need to know where the people opposite are going to be going. So for example, the white car opposite us is either going to come straight or to their right. If it so happens that they're turning straight, that means that you can get up and round the back of them. If they were turning the other way, you'd have to be very careful with where you put your car right in the centre of that junction. and plenty of videos that I have on the channel, which I'll link to in the description as well. Tip number 33, you can enter a yellow box junction and sit in it only when you are waiting to turn right and you're obstructed by oncoming cars. Other than that, keep out of it. Filter lights are awesome. Filter lights are amazing, and I wish we had a lot more of them. So if a green light appears pointing in the direction that you want to travel, it is telling you that you have priority over other vehicles. Here's Ross with the final tip.
Unagi is a state of total awareness.
Guys, if you're still watching at this point, good job. Give this video a like, it helps the algorithm, and it helps the video get pushed to further people, and it lets me know that you like this kind of video. Thank you.